I was making $113,000 a year before I lost my job. It's not a significant amount by Washington, D.C. area standards, but it was liberating to be debt-free and buy most of what I wanted without flaunting it. However, I was scared that people would come after me and start demanding I pay for their meals and help them cover bills. I even kept my money hidden from my parents, who I knew were eager to ask for me to pitch in because they did the same with my older sister, who usually refused except in dire emergencies. Even though they could afford their own expenses. I have given money to friends and college roommates with medical expenses to cover on the condition that they keep it anonymous and don't try to repay me later. Otherwise, I lied to people aside from the Internal Revenue Service and told them I was making $57,000 a year. Part of me feels selfish for doing that, but another part feels grateful because it allowed me to save enough to get through these 6 months of being jobless. I have never asked people for money in my life and never want to as long as I can. Story 1. Not something I have ever felt I need to hide. I rarely have anyone ask except for banks, landlords, and government agencies. Story 2. My wife and I have a more precarious financial situation than we let on. We have quite a bit of debt. We're working on it, but when my parents ask, I just say things are fine. Story 3. Sometimes I wonder if we all talked about this more, then we could all be better off. It's odd to me that something so important isn't discussed honestly and openly. I never knew my parents' wages, but I tell my own children everything related to our income because I want them to understand what it takes to live the lifestyle we do. Story 4. I lie about it often so people don't think I'm a loser. I'm not very good at lying, so they probably know. Story 5. Hide? No. Don't talk about it? Yes. None of my friends or family know how much I make. They only got a hint a couple of years ago when I bought a lake house, and I received a lot of questions like, how can you afford that? I simply replied, I've been saving for a while. Story 6. I never share my income with anyone who doesn't need to know. However, I have used my hourly wage with my children as a teachable moment to help them realize how many hours I would have to work to pay for a specific item. I am employed in the skilled trades and I am doing okay. If someone had told me 20 years ago that I would be making what I am today, I would have thought I was set for life. Not so much anymore. I often find myself wondering what other people do for a living because I can't understand how so many people can seemingly afford houses worth over $500,000 and trucks costing over $80,000. But it's really none of my business. I am thankful for what I have. Story 7. I don't publicize my income. I make a bit more than a doctor on salary locally. Fortunately, most of my social interactions are with work friends. When I am out at restaurants or pubs, I have noticed that single friends of my colleagues' spouses start to react very differently to me when they learn about my job. You can see the expression change from distant to suddenly interested. When I feel cynical, I would describe it as transitioning from dismissive to predatory. Story 8. I never discuss specific numbers, but I suggest that I make more than I actually do. Not because I'm embarrassed, but because I don't want my parents or siblings to offer to help, and I don't want people to feel obligated to pay for me when we go out. It's not pride. It's that I truly don't need their help, but they probably cannot understand that I live on less than what some people consider normal. Story 9. I made enough money to retire at 30. Seems it's not as great as you'd think. I certainly shouldn't tell anyone, as they would probably just think I'm an unemployed trust fund kid and dislike me. Story 10. Hide it? No, I don't openly talk about it either. Nor do I have any issues telling family or anyone else to leave me alone if they ask for money. Story 11. The only people who know my exact income are me, the person who signs my paychecks, and the person who does my taxes, along with anonymous strangers on the internet. I am a senior-level engineer working in a business-to-business technology company whose customers are all large tech firms. Needless to say, I am compensated well. I do not discuss finances with people I know, as I am aware I make 2 to 3 times what my friends and immediate family make. They know I have a job that pays well, but they do not need to know the exact number. With strangers, I tend to downplay it as a standard information technology job to avoid assumptions. I am not looking to foster jealousy or to be a benefactor to others. However, I also grew up as part of a generation that was raised to avoid discussing the 3 social taboos: money, religion, and politics. While most social discourse has discarded these norms, I still try my best to adhere to them. Story 12. I never lie about it, but I don't bring it up and try to deflect when asked. There are a handful of extremely close friends, including my fiancé, who actually know how much I make. Everyone else hopefully thinks I make a regular amount. My dad knows, but my mom does not. Interestingly, my annual salary and benefits are public record, but nobody seems to know that. It's always funny when I tell the government the real number, and they don't believe me. That's amusing. Story 13. I won the lottery when I was 26. I have tens of millions of dollars to my name. Outside of my parents, sister, best friend, lawyer, and financial advisor, no one knows about it. Not even my ex-girlfriend knew about it. Story 14. I am on the opposite side of the spectrum. I have a lot of medical debt and make around $28,000 a year. I am always a $1,200 expense away from financial ruin, but I mostly keep this to myself. Sometimes I need to ask my parents for help, which makes me feel embarrassed, but I only do so when I have no way to afford the necessary expenses. I want to repay them somehow in the future for their generosity. I am close to making it all work. I have a full-time job and am getting near to going commercial with my pottery, which would provide a smaller second income. Story 15. I don't hide it, but I actively avoid discussing it. If someone asks what I do for a living, I say, I'm in the industry and specialize in my niche. My industry is known for paying people six figures and for paying some individuals a low hourly wage, which leaves a wide range of earnings. I don't mention that my name is on the building. My close friends likely have a general idea that I do well, but I've known people for years who would probably say I'm a manager or design specialist if pressed. Story 16. $113,000 is not nearly enough to support others and backstop your friends and family. Now that you have lost your job, which one of them is helping you and paying your bills? The best thing you can do for them is build your own financial security. They have been unable to secure their own, and bailing them out will not fix that. The only outcome will be a lack of financial security for yourself in the future. Story 17. Nothing is wrong there. Nobody but my wife knows how much I make, and often in conversations with my brother-in-law, he talks about making great money and a specific hourly rate, and I just nod along saying that's awesome, even though I make more than he does. Nobody needs to know if you don't want them to know. Don't feel bad at all. Story 18. I do not lie about it, but I do not disclose my personal income. I am much more careful about disclosing the idea of inherited generational wealth because people can be insensitive about it. Fortunately, I am not too concerned about hobbies, so no one questions whether I have money when one of my favorite summer activities is rock hunting in my baggy jeans and thrift store hoodies. I travel a lot, but almost always stay with friends when I go out of state. When nosy family members ask, I simply tell them I am using credit card airline miles and staying with friends, which is usually true. Story 19. I don't hide it, but I also don't broadcast it. If someone asks or has a reason to know, I will be honest about it. Story 20. No one knows how much I make. People know I am doing well, but no specifics. Not my dad, close family and friends, or my girlfriend. They just know I make over six figures. I am more open about my salary on Reddit than those around me. Story 21. Why do they need to know? Maybe it's a different family dynamic, but I have never told anyone in my family what I have made because it has no effect on them whatsoever. Story 22. I make a similar income to what you do, but I live in a lower cost of living area. The company I work for is known for offering competitive salaries, especially for the region. Naturally, everyone assumes I'm financially well off. I'm doing okay, but raising a family on a single income household isn't what it used to be, especially while trying to save for retirement and build a house. I help people out when I can. I'll lend money to people with the understanding that they may not pay it back. If they don't, I don't let it ruin our relationship. I just won't lend them money again. Usually, instead of lending money, I try to help them with whatever situation they're facing, like car issues, home repairs, or appliances. Being handy saves more money than just your own. I fixed my mom's dryer the other day for $20. Spending an hour troubleshooting it and buying a replacement thermal fuse is much better than purchasing a new dryer. Plus, taking the time to do something like that makes it seem less like you have extra money to lend someone for a new dryer. At the end of the day, givers have to set limits because takers rarely do. Henry Ford. Story 23. I hate that everyone in my life thinks that because I work hard and earn a good income, everything is my responsibility. Everyone. My children, parents, siblings, friends, every single person. Story 24. You shouldn't feel bad about doing that. Family and friends can act strangely if they find out you are earning more than they are. Letting them think you are just getting by is fine. Story 25. I am a 21-year-old female sophomore in college in the United States, studying at a private liberal arts college, and I am an international student. I am on full financial aid. I have some interest-free loans that I need to pay off in the next 8 years, so I am financially stable. I didn't earn much money from on-campus jobs, but I won some case competitions and received summer funding, which I did not disclose to my family. My friends think I spend money on all college expenses since it's a very prestigious school, but I am managing everything through financial aid. My tuition, housing, food, and insurance are all covered. I only paid $100 this semester while the total cost of attendance is $90,000. I have almost acquired my first small piece of real estate in my home country, and I look forward to buying more. If I'm correct, I expect to earn a 300% return on that real estate. I also have an emergency savings fund and a high-yield savings account. I just don't want people's attention or negative judgment regarding my finances. I don't want my parents or siblings to ask me for money, and I prefer not to keep excess funds in my bank account since I tend to spend it. It's ironic that everyone thinks I'm broke when, in fact, I have assets and savings. This is my confession for the Reddit community. Story 26. My net worth is $600,000. I am a financial minimalist making under $55,000 a year, living in the most expensive state in the country. The only one who knows my finances is my daughter. The only debt I have is my mortgage and basic living expenses, which I keep to an absolute minimum. I travel for free yearly because I use my credit card points that I accumulate monthly and pay my card off each month. What is my goal? To leave my daughter with generational wealth so she will never know the poverty I experienced growing up. I have taught her everything I know so she can continue building on what I leave her. Story 27. I believe people can form their own opinions based on the fact that I am a single man who owns a house and works for a well-known company. Otherwise, I do not discuss my financial situation with anyone except my certified public accountant. The only things I keep private are the amount I received from my late husband's life insurance and investments, as well as the fact that I own my parents' house. Story 28. I only disclose my salary when I talk with colleagues at the same level of experience in our field. Otherwise, every time I mentioned it to others, they were significantly less affluent, and I felt ashamed to have made them frustrated. For example, my mother-in-law has a small retirement of 800 euros. I once shared my earnings with her because I believe she asked me. My salary is about 4.5 times higher than hers, and I realized that complaining about the high cost of living and my inability to save money made her feel frustrated and sad in comparison. That was definitely thoughtless of me. I sometimes feel jealous when I see people who are obviously wealthy. It's better not to discuss salary unless it is to evaluate whether your compensation is appropriate compared to others in the same role. Story 29. I always have. I made enough of a good salary to take early retirement and have zero debt. I refuse to let anyone know my financial situation because the moment you do, the sad stories and requests for handouts become overwhelming. All you hear from that point forward is, I need. Story 30. No one besides family has ever asked. If a friend inquired about my salary, I would tell the truth since it is quite average. However, I would be less forthcoming if asked about my net worth. I live a very frugal lifestyle compared to most people I know and have saved a significant amount for my age. Story 31. My dad knows how much I earn and how much I have in assets. I tell him almost everything. I use his insights and suggestions on where to invest my money, and it's usually worth it 10 times over, so it's easier to let him manage part of my portfolio. He even knows to the cent how much my apartment is worth because he found it and supervised most of the refurbishment while I was working abroad. I just told him what I wanted, and I paid. Story 32. I never discuss my finances. My siblings ask for money as soon as they think they can get something from me. Story 33. I don't flaunt or hide my financial situation. What I make clear is that I am nobody's life jacket. I almost never loan or give out money, and people generally know that. Story 34. I have no shame. Bankers laugh at me sometimes, but to be honest, having people with whom you can comfortably discuss finances and money is great. I have some friends I can talk to, and we engage in open conversations about finance. However, I have other friends who feel uncomfortable discussing it, and they seem to struggle, so I don't share with them. I also don't share information with those who take advantage of others. I agree. It's beneficial to have people for honest discussions. Story 35. I don't talk much about it, but it's hard to miss that I spend on cars, which is a giveaway. In my country, as well as throughout Europe, anyone who knows the name of my company can look it up online and see the turnover, gross profits, and a few other details. It's pretty hard to hide, but I don't advertise either. If someone really wants to know, they can find out. When someone asks about it, I also mention that I'm in a lot of debt, so they don't think I am doing too well. In reality, I have no debt. Most of my friends and family do all right, but I have helped out a few of them when the pandemic hit and their incomes dried up. I got paid back in full with no issues. Story 36. I was raised in a professional environment where discussing salary was discouraged. It is considered unprofessional and can create tension in the workplace, especially when wages fluctuate. At one job, I was hired at a specific rate, but later that salary was lowered for new hires. The new employees were receiving a significantly smaller wage, and I thought to myself, I earned twice that. But I never voiced my thoughts because it would upset others. Story 37. This is how most millionaires are. You would never know their financial situation based on how they dress, what they drive, and so on. They certainly are not telling anyone. Read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Story 38. I feel fortunate to be surrounded by reasonable people. I earn a six-figure salary in the San Francisco Bay Area, which is the standard there. My friends and I openly discuss our salaries, and we never expect one person to pay for another. One of my friends worked at a company where the stock price significantly increased. Now he is worth multiple seven figures, but I treat him the same and never expect him to pay for me. I also have an older retired friend whom I suspect has an eight-figure net worth, and I never expect him to treat me or ask him for money. Conversely, friends in my hometown earn significantly less than I do. They never ask for anything or expect me to pay. Story 39. Winning the lottery increases the likelihood of becoming a victim of a crime. Marvin Gaye's father killed him over money. Money reveals more of who you truly are. Some people are saints and some people are wolves. It is important to prioritize your own protection. Story 40. It's not really hiding it if they're not entitled to know anyway. My friends who are doing well know that I am doing well, while friends who are struggling think I am struggling. Story 41. I don't hide it, but it really depends on who I'm talking to. I never say it unless asked. I will answer truthfully if it's someone I know working in the same or a similar field or someone I know for sure makes as much or more than I do. I know doctors, recruiters, software engineers, and others who make significantly more than I do. Everyone else, including my parents and romantic partners, receives the same answer: $80,000. The only debt I have is my house, with about $200,000 remaining on it. Story 42. I used to flaunt it, but now I hide it. However, I think I want to show off one more time. My 26th birthday is a few weeks away. Story 43. The Internal Revenue Service, my financial planner, my best friend, and my wife know how much I make. I let everyone else speculate. We might be doing well or burdened with a lot of credit card debt. Story 44. I think it's wise to conceal your situation if you know it will only lead to people trying to take advantage of you. Story 45. I don't flaunt my money other than having generally nicer things than most of my friends. The funny thing is that a lot of people thought I was basically homeless since I lived on my boat. Only a few people ever got to see the gorgeous teak and mahogany interior, full kitchen, and smart home features. I'm not wealthy by any means, but I can live comfortably even with fluctuating cash flow. Story 46. Good for you for protecting yourself in that way. You suspected you had potential parasites nearby, and you took steps to safeguard yourself. Story 47. I generally do not lie about it, but I do not flaunt it either. I have some nice things, but only because they are things I like. When people ask me about my salary, I let them know, and I tell all of my employees exactly how much I make because they deserve to know. Honestly, I have never had any of the issues you are worried about. People do not ask me for cash or think I will be covering all their expenses. However, I often do so when I am out with friends who earn significantly less, because what is the point of having money if not to spend it on good times with close friends and family? Story 48. Don't feel bad about keeping some things to yourself. When you lend your money to someone else, do not expect them to return it, and do not expect they will help you in return. Some people will take you for granted. Story 49. No matter your financial situation, you should keep it private, especially from women. Never lead with your finances. If you do, that is all she will ever see you as. Story 50. I hide my actual number from people. When asked, I find the question rude depending on the context. For instance, if a stranger inquires because they want to know if it is a job they want to pursue, I might give them a rough idea of that income. However, my total income is divided among various sources. Some friends think I am making the same as them, while others believe I am poor because I choose to keep my luxury purchases understated. I don't buy rings, shiny shoes, or a brand new recreational vehicle. Some friends know I make more, but when close friends ask, I do not tell them. For potential significant others, I say, enough to do the things I want to do without worrying. If someone close demands specific figures, I tell them to mind their own business. Money can make you feel used like a bank. Do they not realize that I work hard for what I have? Often, I put in more hours or engage in activities they are unwilling to try. I have friends who can't even wait 5 minutes before asking for a bailout, yet they won't take a moment to learn or change their lifestyle. I don't buy for show. I buy for myself and my purposes, while keeping my values in mind. Story 51. I share my income with close friends and family, but that's about it. I do not disclose my earnings to women I am dating, only to serious girlfriends. My 2 previous girlfriends had full access to my bank accounts. Story 52. How many of you hide your true financial situation? Most people tell almost nobody, at least not in much detail. It really is none of their business. I was scared that people would come after me, demanding I pay for their meals, help cover their bills, and things like that. I capped the family and friends loan pool years ago. Unfortunately, some haven't repaid even after many years, so that well has run dry. There is nothing left for anyone else, and I'm sorry to blame those who haven't repaid. Some have repaid fine, but others have not. I have never lied to people. I have never asked anyone for money in my life, and I never want to as long as I can. Story 53. I don't hide. It's nobody's business. My wife, and to a lesser extent our children, know exactly how much money and debt I have. Story 54. No one except my wife knows how much I make, and that's only because we have a joint account, so she sees it after tax. However, she has no idea what my income on paper is. If people ask about it, I usually say, I don't share that information. You may encounter 1 or 2 people who will want to keep prodding, but at that point, I just tell them it's none of their business. Story 55. I understand not sharing your salary, but lying about it is unreasonable. I don't disclose what I earn, but if a friend asked, I wouldn't mind sharing, though no one ever asks. I wouldn't share it with a stranger or acquaintance unless it was necessary. Story 56. My friends and family know, and some of my higher-level coworkers are aware, but my staff and peers do not know. I am the highest compensated within my level by about $10,000 to $15,000, and my benefits are slightly better due to a performance gap and my negotiations for a hybrid schedule. Story 57. I never shared, but some people could figure it out. That's when I couldn't tell if they were true friends. Story 58. Jesus Christ, man. It's not like you were making $1 million a year. $100,000 isn't even that much anymore. Story 59. I don't lie about my income, but I avoid the topic and will deflect if asked. It's none of your business. Story 60. I associate with people who earn a similar amount or higher than I do. I also value those who share similar morals and values. I do not go into detail about my income or the exact amount of debt I have. However, it is clear that I earn a substantial income for my age and level of experience, and I also have financial support from my parents. If I feel the need to conceal my financial situation, I recognize that I am not among the right company and will adjust accordingly. Story 61. I generally consider it poor taste to talk about my or anyone else's financial situation, whether good or bad. I am not worried about people seeking handouts, but I believe it is nobody's business. Discussing such matters often comes off as either bragging or begging. Story 62. Let me guess, your Asian family members keep asking about your financial situation? Well, you're not the only one. As advice from someone who faced the same situation, just cut them off. Story 63. No one has ever known except my advisor. I recently told my father, and he was surprised that I was worth more than him. He reacted a bit differently than I expected. I thought he would be proud of it, but he almost seemed jealous. It's strange. I guess that's why you shouldn't tell anyone. Story 64. It is rare for anyone to ask. It is somewhat of a social mistake in mainstream American culture, whether deserved or not. If you prefer not to answer, you can easily decline without it seeming strange. Story 65. I don't mind discussing it if people ask, but I'm not one to brag or complain about my financial situation. Story 66. You only tell the people you need to tell. What you make is nobody's business except, at a minimum, the government for tax purposes and any friends or family you trust. Finances have a way of revealing people's true intentions, and it tends to be quite unpleasant. Story 67. The people I know have no idea what I earn, but they have seen me go from being on a tighter budget to a looser one. I am driving a newer vehicle. My friend helped me move from our old house to the one we are in now, which is much nicer. Or when I disappeared for a week to the Dominican Republic in January. I guess one could infer that I am doing better now than before, but I have never told anyone exactly how much I earn. And I have never had anyone ask me for money, though most of my friends also have their own careers and do not need anything from me. Story 68. I don't lie, but I never reveal my financial situation. I only share generalizations. I will do my part if my family needs help, but I prefer not to take on all problems just because I was careful. Story 69. Most of my immediate family knows how much I earn and some of my savings goals. But beyond those few people, I keep it vague and downplay my situation by saying things like, I get by, or I'm doing all right for myself. I don't make a lot of money, but I've prioritized building a strong foundation instead of spending everything. Story 70. Generally, I don't bring it up with friends and family, and I deflect if they try to ask. It's really not their business. I have no interest in dealing with them acting like I owe them something. If they really want to know, they can probably make an educated guess since they know what I do, but I'm not going to tell them. My partner knows, although she doesn't know about the bonuses. Those go straight into a savings fund for emergencies or a house that doesn't get touched. I've had some frank discussions about compensation with some of my coworkers because there is a huge benefit in sharing that knowledge when it comes time to discuss raises. I also have a former professor who has asked me to sit down with his current students a few times, and those conversations usually end up involving compensation as well. Story 71. I was in the same situation, earning a similar amount of money, but I have not been hesitant to let people know how far I have fallen and to never trust a company, regardless of the promises they make. Story 72. Everyone exaggerates their income. I inflate mine to make my job seem more valuable than it is, but I always have to be careful about where the money goes. Story 73. Why does anyone need to know what you earn? I do all right, but after contributing 15% to my retirement account and an additional $400 from each paycheck to a savings account, along with a few $100s toward my mortgage, I barely have any extra money left. Story 74. I do not lie about it, but I refuse to answer random people who ask because it is not their business. Story 75. I always act broke so friends never ask. Only my best friend of 30 years, my daughter, and my wife know. You shouldn't feel guilty. You've worked hard to earn that money. Story 76. I think what you are doing is awesome, especially if you find it difficult to say a firm no to family and friends. Story 77. I am doing better than it appears based on visible indicators such as cars and clothing. However, that is more about personal preference than a conscious decision. If anyone asks, I will be honest with them. On another note, I have never had a friend or family member ask me for financial assistance, so I am not particularly anxious about it. Story 78. I don't share how much I earn. I made that mistake once, and it caused jealousy which led to requests for immediate dinners and discussions with others as if it were anyone's business. Now even my parents don't know how much I earn. Story 79. Not something I hide, but also not something I flaunt either. I make good money, but I also try to live a simple lifestyle as a matter of priorities. I work in finance and I'm good at what I do. I got into this because I enjoy puzzles. Though work can still be challenging, it is more enjoyable because I get to solve puzzles all day. My personal life outside of work is like this: non-work attire, mostly jeans and flannel, some fitness and hiking clothing. Hobbies: winter video games, spring, summer, fall. Hiking, archery, camping. Location: home, middle of nowhere. Work: travel or remote. I have a wife who grew up on a dairy farm, and she also likes our lifestyle. I have a son and spend a lot of time with him. I just started teaching him archery this spring now that he's old enough. In winter, we play video games together. Sometimes we go to the outdoor theater with pillows, blankets, and some toys. I have a small plant that I maintain for personal use. I'd say life is good, but I don't see the point in hiding or showing off. I keep it simple, protect my own if needed, but don't let fear get in the way of doing what I want. I set reasonable boundaries, stick to them, and make them count. Story 80. I don't often get asked this question, but I frequently get inquiries about my savings. People say things like, "Oh, I bet you've saved a lot of money," or "How much did you save in years?" I never answer those questions, and depending on the situation or who is asking, I say it's none of their business. Sometimes, I ask them about their finances and they don't respond. Story 81. I have lied to my friends by about 30%. If, after saying I do well, someone asks again, I don't feel compelled to be truthful. I know that I make significantly more than my old friend group and don't want to create any distance or make anyone feel awkward. I wouldn't want catching up to turn into a competition. If I am wrong about my assumptions, then that's great for them. Story 82. I wouldn't say I hide it, but I don't flaunt it. I live well below my means. I believe part of it is that I don't want much, but another part is that I don't fully believe I can maintain this income indefinitely, so I need to save. If I consider it logically, my income is quite sustainable, so I should stop worrying. Story 83. I have never spoken to my friends or family about how much money I make. It is none of their business, so do not bring it up. Story 84. I am honest, but that is because most of my friends are in the same industry as me. Being transparent can help them gauge how much to ask for. Would I tell my non-industry friends? No, because that invites the behavior you described. Story 85. I don't hide it, but I don't discuss it either. It's no one's business what I earn, other than mine and the Internal Revenue Service. Story 86. Don't feel bad about not telling your family and friends how much you make. That's your business. Sharing that information might change your relationship for the worse. I hope you find a new job soon. Story 87. If my family truly has nothing and faces hunger, then I would help. However, if they can manage fine without my assistance, I often feel uncertain. It is your earned money, your choice. If they wanted more money, they should work harder for it themselves. However, sometimes lending a helping hand can elevate your spirits. Some family members may have a mental disorder or challenges that hinder their ability to study or understand life effectively. There are also ordinary individuals who struggle with life's complexities. These are the people we should help. I am autistic and have social anxiety, but I mention this not for personal assistance, rather to express my perspective. My disorder limits me, yet I strive for improvement each day. I am progressing. I work out 4 times a week now, and am actively working on managing my anxious response in social situations. To my surprise, it is working. Ultimately, material possessions do not guarantee happiness. We can possess all the things in the world, but in the end, what truly matters is the people around us. It is enjoyable to have things. I focused on that for a time as well. Yet, belongings only hold value when shared with those around us. My family is not wealthy, and they did not educate me on how life truly works. They were not taught by their parents either. Some people may seem simple, but that is okay. I now understand the meaning of life because I was determined to discover it myself. It is something you must find independently if it was not imparted to you. Some may take advantage of your kindness, so it is essential to be discerning about who you choose to help. Nevertheless, your parents brought you into this world, which must mean something. Without them, you would not have the privilege of enjoying life. Since I fully grasp that we are all just human, my anxiety has significantly decreased, and I can more easily smile around others. I feel happy and content. Story 88. It is not selfish to protect what is yours from those who would lie, steal, manipulate, and scam you out of what you have earned. It is selfish to endlessly give to others in the naive hope that it will earn you respect and value from them. Value what you have done to earn what you possess. That is earned, that is pride, that is respect. Being selfish is not evil. It depends on the degree. Like normal driving, it is not inherently bad. But like anything, it can be abused and done wrong with harmful intent. Being selfish can be good because everything you do is an expression of yourself. So, being selfish means thinking of yourself first. This is rational. Stop feeling guilty for what you have worked hard for and earned. Story 89. Don't be afraid to keep your financial situation private, as it can save you from unwanted expectations and pressure from others. Story 90. Honestly, I would find a new and better social group. I wouldn't lie to my parents. Just be firm with them. My family is very open about pay transparency. Even with coworkers, I support pay transparency because I acknowledge that lack of knowledge and awareness is a major cause of the pay gap, especially as a woman in healthcare information technology. I never shame my friends for making more or less than me, nor do they feel any type of way about my income. We always support each other in being in the best financial state possible. When we dine out, everyone covers their own expenses. If I go on a coffee run on the way to my friend's house, I don't ask her to pay me back. If she picks up food before coming over for a girls' night, she doesn't ask me to cover half the order. I think having a healthy relationship with those around you really helps with being open about your pay. You should trust and be honest with those close to you, even if it's only family and not friends. I don't tell everyone who asks my salary, but if it comes up in a genuine conversation about growth and goals, I'm happy to share. If people pry, I'll just tell them I make enough. Story 91. I can't say I've felt the need to. I've always managed my finances well and even bought my first car with cash at 18. I have helped out relatives a few times and made a down payment on a house for my parents. The truth is, I have never focused much on money because I haven't needed much to get by. I share finances with my wife, who earns less than I do, but she helps manage the rental properties I own abroad. Story 92. What someone makes is not the business of anyone else. There is no need to lie. If someone asks you, say, I do okay, enough to pay my bills and save a bit. Story 93. I am honest with my friends whom I know are doing as well or better than I am. I have found that sharing when there is a significant gap causes animosity. Some have labeled my profession as highly overvalued despite the fact that I have worked hard and had many sleepless nights to get to where I am. Story 94. No need to hide or tell. In my country, most people don't ask about your annual income. However, for younger individuals still living with their parents, you should not hide this information. Since you are living under their roof, you should also contribute to the household costs. Story 95. What is the outcome of the decision since you considered it? It seems positive and peaceful for you with the people you know. I recommend that when you find a partner, you keep your finances vague unless absolutely necessary. My partner was difficult, and I regret it now. Avoid engaging with unstable individuals. Story 96. None of my family knows, and I believe they shouldn't. My parents and my in-laws have full access to our account, and we have access to theirs. Story 97. I don't outright lie, but I also don't tell people the truth. It feels callous to say I'm comfortable and have a safety net when they don't. So when finances come up in conversations, I join in and make the usual comments about how paying a credit card is important and that they can take advantage of you. However, I never mention that if I really had to, I could pay off my debts and that I only ever use my credit card when I am in a 0% interest period. Story 98. My wife doesn't know how much I bring home. We spent a decade living in debt, and every time I received a raise or a better job, she would spend more. Then I took a promotion that came with a 35% raise. As far as she is concerned, I make the same amount but work fewer hours. Our debt is finally decreasing because, with my reduced hours, I was able to take over all budgeting and bill payments. I was laid off this summer but can still manage all of our bills on just my unemployment benefits. Story 99. Literally no one I have ever tried to date has asked me how much I make. Where are you meeting these women? Story 100. My finances are nobody else's business. It is one of the things that is considered taboo to talk about. Only my dad knows my basic financial situation. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.